Hey folks, Brian Zayn here with my review of Heck in a Sec 2021, the final pay-per-view of the Thunderdome era, and they really wanted to go out with a bang on this one. Literally, the pyro at the beginning of the show was so big, I think it even surprised the announcers.
Well, here we go, I guess.
In a match that was upgraded to Cell status on Fridays of Smackdown, Bianca Belair defends the Smackdown Women's title against Bayley. I will say, the first part of this match was a bit over-orchestrated to the point where it almost took me out of this thing. Because at one point, Bayley grabs a chair and there's all this tension where they're standing in the ring and she's about to swing. She misses the swing, there's another standoff, then Bianca's got her ponytail and she swings it around and she smacks the chair with it, and then they miss the chair shot again, more of a stare down, like what's going on? I think what made it worse for me as a viewer was the audience noise, like whatever the meter was on that was the same the entire time. And so like just hearing from an audio perspective, like there was nothing important about what we saw in that opening sequence. And forgive me for using the word, it looked so fucking fake, it almost took me out of the match entirely. But they did recover really nicely here. Bayley attacks Bianca's shoulder after all that stuff, bringing the steel steps into the ring. I love how much you see Bayley struggle to get the steps into the ring. And then a couple of minutes later, Bianca showing no struggle at all, just picking it up like that and just hucking it into the cell wall as Bayley's cowering in fear. Bayley at one point bites Bianca's arm to get free of her getting her face ground into the cell wall. Bayley gets the reinforced kendo sticks. I love this callback here, and I love Michael Cole tries to explain what happened in last year's Cell match when she tried doing the taped up sticks and like just didn't work out, and to the point where Bayley even tells him to shut up.
Bayley tried to do this on a number of occasions in her Hell in a Cell match last year.
Shut up, Michael!
Then we get a few more points in this match where Bianca's hair becomes part of the story, where Bayley ties her ponytail to like the bottom rope or the chair, and each time Bayley tries this, it almost immediately blows up in her face and Bianca gets a big run. Bianca even tying her own ponytail to Bayley's arm and to kind of short arm her repeatedly as the match goes on here. A ladder enters the match and Bayley does like the Rose's Thorn with the ladder assist, but she hurts her own knee in the process. Bianca hits a senton with Bayley on the ladder, and then she does a KOD on the ladder for Bianca to pin and retain. I give it 3.5 stars out of 5. Like I said, I think the opening part of this, the opening sequence with the face-off and everything, it just didn't connect with me, and I thought it was really dumb, but they recovered fairly well, and it was a very physical, aggressive match after that. I think they almost went to Bianca's hair a little too much in this match. I think we've reached the point all of a sudden from WrestleMania to now, I think they've just used Bianca's hair in about every way imaginable, and they've really kind of, it feels almost like burnout, and I hate to say that, and it seems weird it took this short amount of time to get to this point where it's like, well, what else can you do with Bianca's hair? I'm sure there's a couple of spots we'll see on pay-per-view that will incorporate it at some point that maybe won't seem derivative or repetitive to what we've already seen. But if you've used all of these different ways to use the hair so much in such a little amount of time, where do you really go with that? Bianca with a promo after the match in Gorilla saying she'll never forgive Bayley for what happened between the two of them. Lashley backstage with some ladies. They're very excited while he gets in the zone. A very organic looking scene here. Then Alexa Bliss tells Shayna Baszler to be careful what she wishes for and to expect the unexpected. This match felt like a foregone conclusion for this pay-per-view, but it was finally made official on Friday. Seth Rollins versus Cesaro. And the story here, Cesaro has had Seth's number in a couple of matches now. Seth really trying to get that win back here. Seth actually jumps Cesaro before the match begins during the intros, before the bell officially rings. We actually, at one point in the middle of the match, we get this light cue just to show off how fancy the Thunderdome looks. Great, I'm glad you guys did that in the middle of this matchup. Seth attacks Cesaro's eye a couple of times in the matchup, and Michael Cole with the line of the night on commentary saying, Seth has a history of dealing injuries to people with eyes. Like, we know what you meant, we know what you were going for, but the delivery was a bit clunky.
It's a strategy, the way you said that.
Cesaro comes back, shoving Rollins' own glove into his mouth. Lots of near falls here where Cesaro keeps kicking out. Cesaro with a swing, the sharpshooter, some repeated stomps onto Seth's arm, but he's able to counter one attack into a roll-up and pin Cesaro to win. The surprise roll-up strikes again, and Rollins finally gets the Duke over Cesaro. I give it 4 stars out of 5. Another banger of a match with these two. I'm pretty sure it's physically impossible for these two to have a bad match with each other. Some very well executed stuff here as it went on. I could definitely see this angle continuing through Money in the Bank, possibly getting involved in the Money in the Bank ladder match. That'd be a great chance for those two to continue their feud so far. Rollins winning makes sense because he's the one who's down a couple from Cesaro, so he gets his due here, and nothing really resolved, so we'll probably see this bleed into the next pay-per-view. Backstage with with Nia Jax, Reggie, and the Bays. She's asked about Alexa Bliss and Lily, and Shayna gets very irritated by that. She says the Queen of Spades ends it tonight. Reggie goes to kiss Baszler's hand, but she slaps it away. And on we go to our next match full of hokum as Alexa Bliss takes on Shayna Baszler. The story here is that Alexa is absorbing all of Shayna's offense here, and she just laughs it off, and Shayna gets kind of flustered by all this stuff. There's a couple of moments where Shayna gets an advantage when Reggie gets on the apron and stuff to distract, but everything is just kind of not phasing Alexa. It's very reminiscent of the last couple matches we saw her in, like when she first debuted the darker gimmick. Also very similar to when Bray Wyatt was doing his thing, especially as like the Funhouse version of Bray, where he would just kind of absorb attacks and laugh them off. There's a point where Baszler's really going after Alexa's arm here, and I thought we were going to get that moment where Alexa, she has the ability to be double jointed and can make her elbow look dislocated. We've seen it done like once before on the main roster, and I was kind of shocked we didn't get that here, because that'd be a perfect opportunity for her to get her arm like all messed up and just like, bah, and then she just laughs it off because she's insane or whatever. Like, that would have been a great visual, I think. But in the end, Alexa wins using the power of voodoo or hypnosis or whatever. She basically stares into Shayna's soul to break out of the hold, then she makes her comeback, and then she basically inhabits the body of Nia Jax and can control her by smacking Reggie and then doing a scream, which unfortunately, the way Nia was and the rope covering her eyes the entire time, ooh, you just know they were going for a better shot than that, but you just get rope eyes Nia the entire time of that shot. Alexa hits kind of a Sister Abby into a DDT in the Twisted Bliss to win this matchup, and I don't know, like a half star is what I want to give this one. I don't know. I feel bad about this because I was so into the Bray Wyatt stuff, and then I feel like it's so derivative now with Alexa Bliss, and like the doll was involved, but now she's not. And where are we going with this, folks? What are we doing here? I feel that you could tell this story better than to involve all this hocus pocus and like the use of voodoo and hypnosis. It just seems silly. Like, I want to like it. And I think there were parts of this matchup that executed that story well, but then there's just parts of it like, I don't know, I don't like this. I want to like it. Let me like it, but I can't like it. I can't explain why. I don't know. It's not great. Kevin Owens taking on Sami Zayn here in another match that was made on Friday. What is with this payper-view and how many matches they had to tack on to the end? Like, we lost Roman Reigns versus Rey Mysterio, so now we've got to dump all these other matches onto the show, like with so little, like, not saying there was no build, but it's like, why didn't you announce these matches sooner when, like, it's just obvious, as plain as day, they're going to be for pay-per-view. So anyway, one word to describe this match: physical, but in the best way possible, because these guys have wrestled each other so many times, and we've seen them nearly kill each other every time, but they always find a way to make it work and make it look different and still tell a really effective story. There's just some great back and forth in here, and these two just do beat the hell out of each other. At one point near the end, there's a kick out, and they just start like tussling, just grabbing each other by the hair, just punching each other and smacking each other. Sammy's mouth gets busted open at one point, and they're just like beating the piss out of each other by the end of it here. And one thing I want to bring up is that KO is selling his throat, and he's coughing a lot more as the match goes on because he's selling 2 Nigerian nails from Commander Aziz on Smackdown. So the longer it goes, the worse it goes for Kevin here, but he's still able to have a lot of fight in here. But ultimately, Sami drops him throat first on the bottom rope, and that sets him up for a haluva kick to win here. I think I saw SRS post on Twitter, it's Sami's first singles pinfall victory since October of last year. Like, what in the hell? What in the blue blazes is going on? But I love this match. 4.5 stars for me. I think it's one of my picks for match of the night, just because of the physicality of it and just how much of a fight and just brutal this looked. I mean, there was nothing too overly fancy in this match. It was just gritty, and it felt real, and it felt raw. And yeah, this was like very fun to watch, and good to see my boy Sami get a win here. Raw Women's Championship match up next as Rhea Ripley defends against Charlotte Flair, and there was a real subtle thing. I don't know if y'all noticed when watching this show, but Charlotte's ring attire has gone from Cruella de Vil to Maleficent. Very subtle move here. Charlotte's very bullyish in the early goings of this thing. She's like, she throws the belt at Rhea Ripley before the bell rings to get into her head, like slaps her around the head, like puts her in holds and stuff, saying she's teaching her lessons and stuff. Very aggressive from Charlotte here in the early going. Rhea comes back with like a clothesline and a headbutt, even a big missile drop kick, despite having a bum knee she's working through here. Charlotte breaks out of a submission, hits the natural selection, but Rhea kicks out. Nice German suplex out of the corner by Rhea as well. Charlotte with 2 moonsaults back to back, the second one connecting. Then on the outside, Rhea just kind of dinks Charlotte by pulling the back or the lid of the announce table backward into her face, and it's ruled a disqualification. This was a really good match up until the end here, where it ends in a DQ. Very disappointing end. Rhea hits the riptide on Charlotte and stands tall, and then there's this exchange exchange where Charlotte's like smiling. It's like, you're learning the lessons. And she's like, I just did the same thing you would have done, Queenie. Like I said, this was a very good match. I liked where this was going. And just as it was getting to its final apex point, that's where, disqualification. That was really shitty. And like, I get it from a storyline perspective. I think there's certainly something to be said about, wanting to see them continue to fight, because I think there is some meat on that bone still, and the angle's not done. Very inconclusive ending here. The only issue I have besides the finish was like, okay, like who is the heel? Because Rhea, what she did, like there was a bit of, you could understand a little bit of that, but then the way she carried herself after the fact, it's like, I don't know, who am I supposed to root for here at this point? In your main event, it's the second Heck in a Sec match on the evening as Bobby Lashley defends the WWE Championship against Drew McIntyre. This match was very fun to watch. I'll say that from the get-go here. The first several minutes of the match is very interesting because like nothing happens inside the ring as the match begins. It's all outside for the first, I'd say 5 to 8 minutes of this thing. And it's just Drew beating Bobby's ass for the bulk of this. It's really one-sided for a while until MVP slides his cane into the ring, so Lashley attacks him with it. By the end of their time on the outside, there are 2 Chekhov's tables set up in the ringside area. They will be gone through, just not for a while here. Lashley, after he gets beat down in the ring for a bit, he finally snaps and just pummels the hell out of Drew. So it's very one-sided toward Drew for the first several minutes, then very one-sided toward Lashley for another block of time. He's whipping the hell out of Drew, his back with a kendo stick, but Drew just revs up, kind of hulks up a bit from all the attacks and stuff, and you see the welts on his back. The impact that this match has on both of these guys is very visible. Drew grabs a chair, but Lashley shoves him into the ref. The referee's hit with the chair twice. Ouch. The other ref takes a long time to get into the ring as the other two keep fighting. Drew hits the Claymore, but MVP pulls the referee out because the door is unlocked. And as they say for the millionth time tonight, it's all legal. MVP then gets locked into the cell with Lashley and Drew. And so, of course, he gets beaten up for his troubles. He gets beat up by Drew for a while. Lashley gets the hurt lock locked in on the outside, but they back through the first of Chekhov's tables. Drew with many chair shots. He misses the Claymore. Lashley chokeslams him through the remaining Chekhov's table, though. Lashley missing the spear. Another future shock DDT. Drew going for the Claymore, but MVP grabs him by the leg, and it's just enough for Lashley to hit the dreaded surprise roll-up to pin Drew and win the match. He retains, and Drew McIntyre can no longer challenge for the championship as long as Lashley is champion. And by the way, Drew is now 0-2 in cell matches. 2 years in a row now he's lost that match. I give it 4.5 stars out of 5. I really appreciated this match, as these two guys beat the hell out of each other the entire time. It was very aggressive, very physical. I thought it told a really good story. The back and forth was very evenly matched, and it was really hard to say, one guy really, got his ass kicked more than the other. I think it was just an equal opportunity, and yeah, that made it very entertaining. The surprise roll-up kind of got to me. I didn't care for that, but besides that, I think everything about the match was just really entertaining to watch. Except for that one goofy match with a storyline that is barely hanging on by a thread, and I cannot wait to see how live fans react to this thing when they actually come back in a few weeks. I thought this was an overall very strong pay-per-view. I think for the final pay-per-view of the Thunderdome era, I think everyone upped their game and ended on a high note. Lots of great physicality and aggression and storytelling on display on this show. Nothing was too transformative, and very little, if anything, was actually resolved on this show, which is unfortunate, but not every pay-per-view is going to have that, I guess. I think it was just mostly a very entertaining show, and if I can be entertained by 80 to 90% of this stuff, then I consider it a pretty big win. But those are just my humble thoughts, folks. What did you think of Hell in a Cell? Let me know in the comment section below. A couple of things to plug as far as t-shirts go. Of course, I am still doing the deal this month, all month long. The Like What You Like, Don't Be a Dick Pride t-shirt, where the proceeds of those sales will go to the Trevor Project. But also there is a new shirt out that commemorates one of my favorite moves on the planet, the Flying Nothing. Those shirts and many more available at prowrestlingtees.com/wrestlingwithregret. Also want to make sure you know about the new This Week in Regret channel. I'm going to post a link to it right here in the corner as well in the description. It is the new official YouTube home for me and Jay Biggs' weekly podcast, where we talk about all the biggest weekly goings-on, news and rumors in professional wrestling. And we also have a SoundCloud available for that as well. That is now down in the description as well. So please go check that out. Subscribe to the SoundCloud, subscribe to the new YouTube channel, and the feedback we've received on this podcast in the first couple of weeks has been very good for us, and it helps kind of craft how we're going to build that podcast going forward. I'm a little nervous going to dip in my toe toe into the podcast scene here. I never thought I would do it, but you know what? After several years of saying no, eventually you just got to kind of dive in and let's give it a try. And of course, as we always say here, do it for the content. I'm Brian Zayn, and I'll see you next time.